Instead of teaching her class, a lazy middle school teacher makes her students watch movies daily in the classroom, while she sits around taking drugs and sleeping. Her sole aim in life is to get herself hitched to a wealthy boyfriend. Other than this, nothing else matters. The scene cuts to the last day at John Adams Middle School in Chicago, and during the staff meeting, Elizabeth Halsey resigns her teaching job to focus on planning her lavish wedding. Elizabeth does her best to flaunt her relationship to everyone present and makes it clear to the other teachers that she will never teach again. Unknown to her, this was just the beginning of her teaching profession. Elizabeth arrives at her fiancé's place with lots of excitement, only to find him in a meeting with his mom. Her rich fiancé dumps her when his mother shows him that Elizabeth is only after his money. She didn't even know the birthday of her soon-to-be husband. Left with no other option, Elizabeth had to return back to her old job. At the school's gym teacher, Russell Geddes, makes advances at Elizabeth, but she declines and informs him that she could not date a coworker. Her dedicated and enthusiastic colleague, Amy Squirrel, introduces herself to Elizabeth and is determined to be her rival. Not too long afterwards, another female teacher by the name Lynn invites Elizabeth for lunch and offers to pay the bill. Lynn had always wanted to be Elizabeth's friend, but she never gave Lynn the chance. Things are different this time around, as they both hang out. Elizabeth tells Lynn that from now on, her number one goal will be to get a rich boyfriend that will take care of her. However, for this to happen, Elizabeth decides that she needs to undergo a breast surgery to increase her tits. Elizabeth had spent time comparing the boobs of other female stars online, and she came to the conclusion that it was the only way. Although Lynn disagreed with this, it did not change Elizabeth's mind. Rather than teaching her students, Elizabeth chooses to keep them occupied with movies. Right from the first day at school, she ordered the two of the boys to bring out the television. Amy gets on Elizabeth's nerves by questioning her about her style of teaching and behavior towards her duties as a teacher. While walking down the hallway, Elizabeth meets a new substitute teacher, Scott Delacourt. She notices his expensive wristwatches and strikes a conversation with him. She later realizes that he was wealthy and single. This were the exact qualities that she was looking for in a man. He immediately becomes her new goal, and a picture of his ex-girlfriend with large breasts motivates her even more to go for the breast enlargement. However, a visit to the doctor reveals that the procedure will cost a whopping $9,300. This is way beyond her income as a teacher, and due to Elizabeth's reckless lifestyle, she doesn't even have any savings to her name. Elizabeth attempts to raise the money by calling her parents and her former fiancé, but due to her past record, they all refuse to send her a dime. Back at school, a student walks up to her in class and tells her of a car wash event that was being organized by the 7th graders. Elizabeth initially refuses to be a part of it, but suddenly changes her mind when she learns of the money that came from the event in the previous year. She approaches the principal and convinces him to allow her head the car wash event. This sounded like a bright idea to the principal, as he wanted Elizabeth to be a part of the activities going on in the school. He agrees to the offer and allows Elizabeth be the chairman of the event. The principal removed Amy and replaced her with Elizabeth. Elizabeth comes to the car wash wearing provocative clothing, and this causes a lot of stir. Most of the men ended up bringing their vehicles to the car wash and even paid more for the washing of the vehicles. Elizabeth is able to make way more money than the past years. She keeps a larger percent of the money for herself and gives the remainder to the school. The school organizes a meeting between the parents of each class and the teacher. During the meeting with the parents, one of them complains of Elizabeth's style of teaching, but she insists that it is a newer and better way to impart knowledge. After the meeting, a parent meets up with her at the doorway and pleads with her to give his son special attention. Before Elizabeth will even reply, he gives her cash to buy anything she needs. Seeing this as a new way to raise more money for her surgery, Elizabeth walks up to the parents one after the other and manipulates them to give her money for more school supplies and tutoring, but her efforts are not enough. Amy informs the principal about Elizabeth's embezzlement, but he dismisses her claims when no evidence is provided. The principal recalls the praise reports from several of the parents concerning the car wash event and advises Amy to take a cue from Elizabeth. Lynn tells Elizabeth about a band of teachers that would be performing that evening. She turns down the offer, stating that she would rather do better things with her time. Few minutes later, Scott meets up with her and tells her about the same event. Surprisingly, she accepts to come watch the band, and you can be rest assured that it was because Scott showed interest in it. At the band presentation, Elizabeth encourages Lynn to loosen up and talk to men. The wealthy teacher, Scott, admits that he is attracted to Amy and only likes Elizabeth as a friend. Scott goes on to tell Elizabeth about how Amy has helped him to recover from his past relationship. This new piece of information angers Elizabeth, and she tries to paint a terrible image of Amy by telling Scott that he was not her type because she is a lesbian. Notwithstanding, Scott pursues his relationship with Amy and even goes as far as composing a special song for her. Elizabeth strongly believes that the reason for Scott's love of Amy is because she has bigger boobs. Lynn tells Elizabeth not to think about it. Instead, she should use that energy to make her students the best. Discovering that the teacher of the class with the highest state test scores will receive a $5,700 bonus, Elizabeth decides to change her style of teaching. She takes her teaching more seriously and starts forcing the class to intensely study To Kill a Mockingbird for the test. However, since it is late in the school year, combined with her unorthodox teaching methods, the students score low on the book quizzes, further frustrating her. Meanwhile, she befriends the gym instructor Russell, as Amy and Scott start dating. Russell doesn't hide his feelings for Elizabeth and even goes as far as telling her that he loves her breast size the way it is. He advises her not to go for the breast enlargement process. Seeing how passionate Elizabeth has now become about her students, Scott commends her efforts. Amy is not too pleased about Scott's reaction to Elizabeth. So she starts looking for a way to make Elizabeth look bad. Amy goes as far as questioning Elizabeth's students about how she interacts with them. From what the student told her, it became clear that Elizabeth does drugs. For a teacher, this would not go down well with the authorities. But for it to be accepted, Amy needed proof and she was ready to find it. Elizabeth plans to steal the state test answers by impersonating a journalist and seducing Carl Hollaby, a state professor in charge of creating and distributing the exams. She convinces Carl to go into his office to have sex, but drugs him and steals the answer key. A month later, Elizabeth wins the bonus, completing her needed funds, and books her breast enlargement. When Elizabeth learns that Amy and Scott are chaperoning an upcoming field trip, she smears an apple with poison ivy and leaves it for Amy, who ends up with blisters covering her face and cannot go. On the trip, Scott admires Elizabeth's relationship with the children. Elizabeth does her best to seduce Scott. They dry hump and Elizabeth secretly leaves Amy a message through Scott's phone, recording all the action. However, Scott's ever-changing ideals disappoint Elizabeth. Scott also tells Elizabeth again that he is in love with Amy and does not want to cheat on her. He shows Elizabeth a promise ring that he shares with Amy. Meanwhile, one of her students, Garrett, gets taunted by his classmates for confessing to an unrequited attraction to a superficial girl in the class named Chase. An embarrassed Garrett separates himself from the class and goes in search of a poet. Elizabeth searches for him and does her best to console him. By this time, the whole class and Scott had noticed that Garrett and Elizabeth were both missing. Not knowing what to do, Scott reaches out to Amy, who then advises him to bring the other children back home. Amy accuses Elizabeth of sleeping with minors and the case is taken up by police and reporters. When Elizabeth finally brings Garrett back home, she is arrested for abducting the young boy and taken to prison. Elizabeth was not given an opportunity to explain what actually happened. Most people in the same condition as Elizabeth would be thinking of the situation that resulted in their arrest. Elizabeth acted differently. The only thing that came to her mind in prison was her appointment with the plastic surgeon. Elizabeth asked that she be allowed to make a call. She placed a call to the hospital and begged them that she would not be able to meet up with the appointment. The truth about the whole scandal comes to light and Elizabeth is released. Her roommate, who was never called to bat, acts as her counsel and the matter is awfully resolved in Elizabeth's favor. Due to the incident, Garrett becomes popular among the students and is accepted by his crush, Chase. After the whole scandal, Elizabeth resumes back at school. Amy approaches her and feigns ignorance of the whole abduction allegations. In response to this, Elizabeth punches Amy in the face. The whole incident with Garrett prompts Elizabeth to begin reflecting on her own superficial ways. Back at the school, Amy switches Elizabeth's desk with her own to trick the janitor into unlocking Elizabeth's sealed drawer. The evidence Amy finds leads her to suspect Elizabeth cheated on the state exam. Amy informs the principal about it and gets Carl to testify against her. The principal tells Amy to keep the matter low to avoid another scandal. However, Elizabeth took embarrassing photos of Carl while he was drugged and uses them to blackmail him to say she is innocent. Having been informed that her desk was switched, Elizabeth states that teachers in the school use drugs. When the police bring a sniffer dog to search the school, they find Elizabeth's mini liquor bottles, marijuana and OxyContin pills in Amy's classroom, in Elizabeth's desk, leading to Amy getting arrested and transferred to another school by the superintendent. In a staff meeting, the new development is announced to everybody and Amy gives a goodbye speech. Scott asks Elizabeth to start over, but she rejects him in favor of Russell, having learned they have a lot in common. When the new school year starts, Elizabeth has reformed. She is kinder to her co-workers, and has started a relationship with Russell. Elizabeth also has a new position as the new guidance counselor. Garrett acknowledges Elizabeth's new breasts much to her delight. The new 7th graders enter into her class and she welcomes them by giving them their name tags. After settling in, She kicks of the class by having the students watch the movie Saw. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you smash that like button, leave a comment, subscribe, and turn on notifications to help the channel out. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.